This conference will now be recorded.
In exception handling, we see the concept called basic exception handling, means
Are
try.
you are you are you
Yes.
sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sharing. I understand. I shared already. Now, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can see.
Try, accept. Then we going through the accept part. Accept. We have different exceptions. In that we have called exception one, which is generic, right? Generic we have, and also we have another exception called name error exception, right? These exceptions we have divided by zero exception, zero division error exception. This is exception we have. These are different exception we saw yesterday, and then we move to another exception, exception argument also we saw, right? Arguments in exception, and after that we continue to the concept called else part, else in try block, and then we move to different exception, means uh, raise, right? Raise and assert, these things, right? We saw these all things, and also we create one program. So what, just let me revise these all things again, and then we'll go to another part, means there is one another concept finally also we have. That means all code, whatever we have, it should execute finally block, I think. So if we not completed this finally, let me tell you, it's very basic, easy. And there, here we have got the code can contain error, suppose. So it can execute or it cannot execute, it's up to us. So here we will write exception part. Statements we will write here, whatever we need to how we are going to handle this part. And then we have else block. After getting an error, the else part should execute, means after if we don't, else part will execute after this. There are some certain situations, so that time this will execute. Here also we have some statements, and then after that we have finally. In that finally, what happened, basically the statement whatever we written here, the statement, so whether this code executed or not, these all blocks, it should execute this finally block. Suppose here I open my connection, open SSH connection. Suppose I did SSH connection here. Okay, so there I create one object. Remember, object allocate memory. Remember, object allocate memory. Here I given some connection string. Connection string means the path where I want to connect, this server I want to connect. So when you allocate this object, so it allocates some memory. When you design this object, it allocates some memory, and that memory can be, suppose, consider 1 MB memory. So our program allocating, this object is allocating 1 MB memory, and whole program, for operating system they given 10 MB memory, consider, because or 1 GB memory. Total memory we have in our system is, suppose, 2 GB. Consider 2 GB memory in our computer we have, and from that 2 GB operating system will take some memory. And that much memory, how it will take? It will take 70-60% memories. Consider it is Windows 7, Windows operating system, so 70% memory it will take. So we don't have that much of space, or 50% if it is taking as operating system as Linux. So 50% operating system means 1 GB memory for your operating system. So remaining memory we have for this application. So whatever you create an application, or run the query in SQL, or through Python, so that part is allocating some memory, remember. Okay, so what happened actually here, guys? Can you see my screen or having some issues? Multiple people joining, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
uh, so here what happened actually, if you have total computer memory is 2 GB, I'll tell you one thing. 50% or 70% of memory operating system are consumed. Remember, so it will allocate. And application whatever you have, so it will allocate some memory. Suppose we we open two application like MS Office, consider, and your Python script, consider. So MS Office will take suppose 50% memory, means 512 MB memory, and this is taking some 500 memory. 12 MB is still remaining. So this 500 MB memory is allocated by your Python script. So what happened here basically? So when you allocate this object, it allocating some memory, and it will create a problem. It will create a problem if you not release this memory. Remember, so to release this memory, we need to write a code somewhere which is should execute anyhow, which should execute anyhow. So what we will do, usually we will deallocate object here, deallocate object here. Here we are allocating object. Remember, it is called allocating method. Allocate object memory. We are making reserve for particular memory, and here we are deallocating object. So because of this reason, we use finally. Finally is used to deallocate object whatever you allocate at the time of try block. Anyhow, we need to write a code for that. So that's why we will write here a deallocation part. So suppose I'll show you how to deallocate memory, del and object name. That's it. Here it will be your object name. So you need to write your object name here to allocate memory, and here deallocate memory, how you will use del and then object name. So this will deallocate your computer memory. So here it will release your 1 MB space in your RAM. Getting my point? So this is the purpose of finally, and we as an industrial level, we need to use this finally block. In industry level, if you are executing some script and long-term running jobs, so that time we definitely require this finally block. For others, like small tasks like copying paste or some small thing, or some changes in our system, if we want to write that type of script, then we no need to worry about this finally block. But if you are doing something very big, suppose your job is running more than 3 hours, 5 hours, or 10 hours, or maybe sometime my job is running more than 3 days, 5 days, like that. So that time I need to use this finally block, because each time it will allocate memory, and if we not release that memory, it will create a problem to me. It will create a problem to me because again and again it will allocate some memory. Maybe it is 1 MB or 10 MB, whatever. So we need to take care about this thing. So this is the purpose of finally. Now we saw about this arrays and assert. Just let me revise this about things. So can you tell me what is the purpose of arrays? Why we need to use this arrays? Uh, what is the purpose of arrays, and how we will write here? Exception, right? And here we will pass some arguments. It can be anything, a, b, c, or element, anything. Anyway, now tell me the purpose of arrays, why we use, what is the benefit of this? Yes, guys, help me. Yes,
To raise
can
the
you tell
exception,
me?
to raise the exception at a, it doesn't matter, but it
Yes,
will raise by default. It will raise the exception if it's any issue, error or anything.
yes. For business logics, remember, for business logic, we need to do some exceptions also for business logic purpose. If suppose as per ATM, if you are creating ATM software or ATM script, ATM software based script, so that time what happen, it will we don't want to send the amount less than 100 rupees. Less than 100 if is there, if is asking withdraw my amount less than 100 rupees, so that means it is wrong. So this is, we need to generate an script. So that time what we will do, we'll write if withdraw amount is less than 100, then raise exception, else continue and then do your work. Here withdraw your amount. So this part we will do here, otherwise we will raise the exception, and here we will write amount is not less than 100 and then continue. So raise will help us to generate an exception as per our requirement, which we have which we written in business logics. So in business logics or as per management requirement or as per client requirement, we will give some detail. Suppose another example, guys, can you help me in another example? Any another example in your scenario? Jagdish, Chaitanya,
Yeah.
any
If
example from your mind?
Yeah. Let us think like if we are going in a vehicle or something, if the speed is more than, uh, I mean, more than the required,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yes,
then,
80
yeah.
is more than 80 is speed, suppose. So
Mhm.
that time we need to generate the exception. So that is also good, no problem. So this is type of called raise the exception. That time we require to raise the exception. Remember, nobody like an error. Remember, but we need to give some exception. Why? Because they are doing something wrong. So to control this that part, we need to do some exception handling, and in that we need to raise our own exception. So we can raise our own exception here, and then we will see another concept. Sometime what happen, assert. Assert is one keyword, and with the help of assert we will write some condition here. Remember, condition and then bracket upper close, and then here we will write some part like a message. You can say message. So if this condition is not satisfied, this will generate one message. So this is one type of exception handling. So here we can generate an exception. So last time we saw, can you guys repeat this example? Assert in double quotation Linux, right? I'll try with practical here. So let me help me on this example. Assert double quotation. If I return here Linux, and here tell me, hello, Jagdish Chaitanya.
Yeah, nothing. Go ahead.
No, and tell me the example what actually we have last time we saw.
the system is not Linux, Windows dot system dot.
System import sys, right?
First of all, we need to write import sys, right?
Sys, yeah.
And then assert,
Asset dot
and then
sys, asset of sys, or something.
Linux, right? Here, and then Jagdish, you can get tell, no problem, no issue. Linux in sys, right? Dot platform, and then bracket, comma, and then whatever the message. So assert error will come, remember, and whatever you return the message, it will display that message ASDF. So we'll get ASDF. So if this condition is satisfied, suppose instead of writing this Linux, if I write here Win32, that means the exact output, I'm not getting that error. Remember. So this is conditional based exception handling. Remember, based on some condition, here we will write some condition, especially operating system related conditions. In that condition, if this condition is not true, then only it will display this error and it will generate an error. See, this is what error, right? This error when it will come, when we do something wrong, like suppose 2 divided by 0. If I'm doing something wrong, it will give me an error, right? Same thing here. If I'm doing if my operating system is not Linux, so that time it will generate an error, and the value whatever we have here in the explanation, we can create our own explanation here. So if I write here something like this, consider. So double quotation and close. So see, I'm getting same message whatever we written, integer division or modulo y is 0. So assert will help us to create our own error exception, and based on some condition satisfied. If this condition is not satisfied, then only it will generate an error and display this message whatever you written here. This is the purpose of assert. Okay, so that time we will use, remember, and here we have some condition, and that condition can be anything. Like here we are writing condition called linux, and then in, and then sys dot platform, because this will give you one output, platform, and then enough. So this is your condition, it can be anything. So if this condition return, if this condition return false, remember, if it return false, so that time it will generate an exception plus a message, your message whatever you written here, this message will come here. So if this condition is false, then it will happen these things. What happen? It will generate an exception, a z exception, and the message whatever you given here. If this condition is true, remember, if this condition is true, then nothing will happen. It continue to new next line. Remember, for true part, it will directly continue to next line. Whereas if it is false, if this condition is false, then it will generate an exception plus message, both thing, and skip next line. Remember, next line it will skip. So this is the main thing in Azure, remember. So these are the things we already saw, and also we saw one another concept called custom error handling, right? Custom creating error, custom error exception using class. So before going to this topic, I'll just revise the previous little bit about the object oriented concept, then we will come to this point, and again we will revise these things. Okay, let me continue with example about the classes and other stuff. So I'll go with simple example. Here is an example like class. If we have a different type of class, now in any object oriented programming language, remember this is also one type of object oriented programming language, and oriented programming language, there are two types of language. Remember, procedural oriented programming language, which contain all procedures we have here. That means all things is based on functions, or you can say method, and a set of method is one file is called procedural oriented programming language. Example is C language. Okay, example is C language. Whereas this object oriented programming language is based on purely objects and classes and objects. And example is Python, Java, and C++. These are the examples of object oriented programming language. Now what we can do with this example, what we can do, we have one concept called class. Now what do you mean by class? Class contain property of particular member. Like human have hands, right? Human have color, human have language, human have everything. So the property and the process, it contain only two things, remember. And what is class? Class only, it is a set of members, and that members can be a function, or it can be a data, or data you can say property, in another language property. Sometime in as per another language we say method. Remember, in pure technical geek, they will tell methods. Class contain methods, whereas individual method is called function. Sometimes they will ask you wrong question also. Sometimes, suppose, what is different between method and class, method and function? So function is basically coming from procedural oriented programming language, which means only individual function def f1 and then open close bracket. So this is called function. Print welcome. Now this is individual thing, that is called function. Whereas in method, what happened? We have one class ABC, and then we have here one function a, and then we will write a function. So this is called method. Remember, triple A is basically a method, whereas F1 is a function. Why? A function it comes from a pure procedural oriented programming language, in which we have to write a function without any class and other things. This is called function. And whereas methods are basically coming from object oriented programming language. This is coming from object oriented programming language. So we should have a class. In that class we will write a function, so method, sorry. So this is called methods. Okay, now for going in detail about this object and function and methods, I will take one example. Suppose we will create a function class. Here, what in by class? Class can be a method or data or property, we will say. Usually data can be a variable. Remember, what is data? Here a equal to 10 is my data. Remember, it is my data. This is a equal to 10 is my data, because this data held by variable. So here complete thing is called my data. So this is also called in another languages like properties. In industry enterprise level we will say properties. So these properties we have, and now we will see some example of class. Suppose class bird. So birds can have what they can have? They can have def and then underscore. What in by this thing? This is called a function, predefined function. We are overriding predefined function in it, and then underscore. Now here I will specify self comma name comma age, whatever, and then we will specify method detail. Self dot name is equal to the name, whatever it is coming. Self dot age is equal to age. Now I created one class, and that class contain one constructor. What in by constructor? It is a special function. Remember, what is called constructor? It is a special function or method in which we should start with underscore. In another language, the function name and class name, constructor name is same. The function name, the class name and method name is same, is called constructor. Whereas in Python, if you write underscore in it, that is called constructor. Remember, and remember, constructor never return any value. Here we can return any value. Here remember, here we can return some value, right? We can return some value here, no issue. We can return anything, but in constructor we never return any value. This is the characteristics of functions of constructor. Example, another example, we can create another method like sing, and then here we will specify self comma song. Now what in by self? Self is a predefined object, you can say current object in which we are feeding these values. So with the help of this self we can revise it anywhere. So here I'm filling the self object with name and age, whereas here I'm fetching these values whatever I return. So I'll write here return and then the value. So here I'll specify in brackets and then sings and then brackets dot format and then self dot name comma song. So what in by this thing? What happened? Let me tell you, birds is a class, whereas this is called constructor. And when we create an object of class, remember, this is a class. When we create an object of class, it will create a same structure. whatever we have here. So that time self is an object which will help us to fill the information, and we can pass from one function method to another method using self keyword. Okay, now here another thing, I'll write dance and then open close bracket self. So I can use this self and then return is now dancing dot format, and then I need to pass the value self dot name. So this self dot name will pass to this location, remember. So this whole string become whatever we specify in name, which is here, and we will pass and we'll get the data directly. Okay, now we'll turn this thing into one complete example. Let me try with complete example. So I'm coming from this dance method to class, again from class to normal block, means main block, and here I will write blue, and blue equal to your class name birds, and then bracket double quotation parrot, and then I'll specify age some value. So remember what in by this thing, I'm creating an object. This is called creating an object. That object name is blue, and here is my class name. When you specify class name with these arguments, that means you're calling a constructor. So here we are passing two values. What values we are passing? Parrot and 10. So parrot will store in name, and whereas 10 will store in age. So when you specify parrot, and so what happened, self is basically an object. So self contain these two variables, name and age. So each value will store into particular object. So we can fetch this object using this values. I'll show you practically. So I'll do one thing, blue dot sing, and here I'm passing any song. Some value I pass, and now I'll get the result, right? So I'll say s1, and then I'll write here print s1. That's it. So what I'm doing here, I'm calling a function which is inside this class, a method you can say, which is inside this class, and that returns some value. What it will return? It will return an string. Remember, this will return this part only, but instead of this curly brackets, it will pass these values, name and song. So here it will come parrot, and then songs, sings, and the happy birthday song name. Okay, getting my point? Let me try with this example to run this practically. Exit. Parrot sings happy birthday. Getting my point? So what in by these things? Parrot will store here, and it will pass to self object, and from self object we can fetch this value. Remember, we can fetch value. We are storing, remember, we are storing self dot name here, but we can retrieve this self dot name anywhere. So here I'm retrieving this value. Why? Because I specify here self object, and if you specify any self object, you no need to pass the value. Remember, we are passing only two values here, whereas here we have three arguments. Here we have two arguments. We are passing only one argument here, right? So what did we mean by this thing? Self is by default object argument, and in which whatever you specify, like here I'm specifying some values, it will shareable with every methods, each and every methods. This is very important. And getting my point? Any question, guys? Jagdish, Chaitanya, Jesh?
No, just I need to go to review one more time, probably, and then I think.
Okay.
So you are returning that particular braces inside, right? Sinks before. What is that doing there?
Yeah, yes, this.
Yeah.
So let me explain about this concept first, because I added many things inside one example. So no problem. Suppose here I am storing some value. Remember, ABC. Variable A contain ABC. Okay. Now our name equal to some value. Sam. Now name have this value. Now what I want to do, I want to display the value. I'll do one thing. S1 is equal to double quotation, your name is, and the name whatever we have name dot format, and then we will pass name of variable. So what in by S1? S1 contain your name is and Sam. See why Sam is coming? Because we specify Sam here, name. In argument we are passing name. So remember, when you specify these things, it will take this value from here.
Good.
Getting my point?
Yeah.
Now you
Now
clear your doubt. Okay.
Yeah.
Now here we did same thing. Instead of one, we are passing two arguments, one and second. So this
in the
value,
for the first box, the parrot will come from the self dot name,
right?
right?
Right.
And the song you have kept it as happy birthday, then it is coming in the second brace.
second.
Right, correct. Jagdish, you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, we are clear now.
Now, what in by this underscore in it?
It's a constructor.
Predefined.
Yes, predefined constructor, and each and every class should have constructor. Remember. Now, some interview points I will share with you. Remember, this is called constructor. Now, why we need constructor and what is the benefit of constructor? Let me tell you about these things. Constructor is basically one type of special function. You can say it is special function or method of class, of any class. It is a special method. What? Constructor. And in constructor, each time in Python we will specify constructor with this name underscore init. Okay. And name of constructor. Another point related to this, basically constructor is basically why we need to use constructor. Why to use? Okay, I know this all things, but why to use? The purpose of usage is what? Basically we initialize all object or memory inside constructor.
That can be used throughout the class anywhere in any method, right?
Right. Yes, that can be used throughout the class, whole class. So that's why we use this. This is very, very, very important. If you tell this point, they will release you. They will not ask you more about constructor. Then they will satisfy. Okay, now he knows why we need constructor. Because people just writing constructor and telling what is constructor. But we should know why we use constructor. If we know these things, we can do many things with the help of this constructor. And where we use this constructor for enterprise level applications, we require the constructor. Where in which area we use this constructor? For the challenging area, like that time we have more consuming of memories and allocation of deallocation memory we required. So that time we use constructor. Remember, when we use constructor, if we have a problem about memory and issues are related to the allocation and deallocation, that time we use constructor. Same thing, we have another concept called destructor. So before going in detail, I'll just display one message here. So remember, this message welcome will come when it will come, in which line it will execute. Line number 81, 82, 83. In which line welcome will display me message?
I think while initializing itself, like the print statement will print, right?
Yes, correct. So I'll display here by. Now I deallocate the memory, and now what this is called destructor. Previous one is called constructor, and this is called destructor. What do you mean by destructor? This is for allocating memory. This is for deallocating memory. Constructor for allocating memory. Allocate memory for object. Whereas this, it will deallocate memory. Why we need to write this destructor? To deallocate memory. For standards, for recommendation, we should follow allocation and deallocation. If we are allocating some memory, we should deallocate it. Otherwise, it will keep it as it is. Like in example, if I open MS Office and open MS Word file, you cannot open my file because it is locked, right? Because it is consuming some memory and it is locked by software, and it is allocating some memory. The responsibility of deallocating is only that person who opened this file, right? So with the help of deallocation destructor, we deallocate the memory. Now we'll say, execute this program. What happened we'll see. And when we execute this program,
I think welcome and bye will get printed, right? Instead of the down ones.
So just guess what is the output here.
Welcome,
Jayesh?
bye.
Welcome, it will come definitely. Yes,
Bye.
it will definitely come welcome message. I agree. Now another when it will come this message, when 82 line number execute. Remember, when 82 line number executes, it will directly call the constructor, and in constructor whatever we return, it will execute one by one. Okay. Now here I'm calling blue dot sing happy birthday. So it will come here and it will display when I try S1. Okay, so I'll get the output and see here I'm getting by. Even if I am not called destructor, it will automatically called. Why? Because Python program is very smart to understand this object blue is not again using. We are not using again blue object in home file. So it will automatically deallocate memory. So there is one concept in advance, if those they are specifying 5 to 10 years of experience, they should know what is the concept here. Here it is called automatic garbage collection, in which Python constructor and destructor automatically handle. Constructor obviously handle through when you create an object. I agree with these things, but destructor will automatically call when it sees there is no usage of this object blue. So here no usage of this object, so after executing whole statements, it will automatically call this destructor. Now even though you can call this destructor here as well using del method. Del your object name, my object name is deallocate. So here I'm calling this line. Now I try to run the same program. So see what is the output. What is the difference between both object outputs? So hello, what is the output differences, guys?
The by. It will first
Ah,
execute the.
yes, because forcefully I'm deallocating memory. Remember what in by this del. Del is basically forcefully deallocate memory of particular object. So when you do write this line, what happen? It will deallocate memory and it will call the constructor. So in which it will execute whatever you return here. Simple message I return, so it will execute that message. Getting my point?
Yeah, that's good. We got it.
Jayesh? Okay. Now let's start another program. So what we understand from this program, there is one constructor which will help us to allocate memory, and here we will write allocation part, the purpose of this allocation part, and this sing and dance are user defined methods. we can create as per our requirement. Remember, we'll not write always sing and dance, and because of I given some example related to birds, so I given this methods. So in your case, you need to write your own functions or methods of that class. And finally, whatever you allocate memory, you can deallocate using del. Del is called destructor. This is constructor which will construct the memory, allocate the memory, and destructor which will deallocate memory. This is the difference between both. Now we will go to detail, go in this keyword. What in by this keyword? Del. Del means again calling destructor manually. If you are not calling destructor manually, automatically it will call after execution of last line, end of line of your program. So this is very smart. And why Python is very fast? Because of this reason. Remember, because there is concept called in Python garbage collector. What is the purpose of garbage collector? Which will help us to collect the remaining object, deallocate remaining object using garbage collector. So when it will execute whole program, Python will again find out what is remaining and what object is still allocated memory. So if you not write this line, it will write this line automatically after the end of the program. So this will line automatically come here if you not written anything. So this will deallocate memory and it will get the output as by. Any doubt, any question here, guys?
No.
Now let's try with some another example. We'll see. I'll try with another example. Suppose here I'll take one example as test or some simple example called greeting. Message dot py. Maybe it is reserved, so that's why I'll hear msg test, message test. Okay, message class. Okay, this is my method. Now here in this class, I'll write a class here, class msg class. You can write any name. I just given because of understanding. Def underscore underscore init, and then underscore underscore def self colon, and then print, and then constructor call. Right, and here I'll write def underscore underscore del. Remember, it is not important for sequence. I'm writing del here. Print destructor call. And here I'll write some simple say hello, some argument here, and then print hello dot self dot name. Some simple class I written. Okay, now this class, when we create an object, it will call this constructor call. When all line executed, automatically destructor will call, message will come, and when we especially write say hello, so this will come message hello and the name. Okay, this simple class I written. Now what I want to do something another, means in this I need to write some code, and with this code what I will do, I will try to call this method. Now I'm going in little bit advanced, so let me try with same example. Here I'll write another class calling message class. Any name you can write. And here I'll remove this thing and I write from, and the class name. The class name is what? Our class name is msg class. What in by from is a keyword, remember, and here I'm writing import and the class name, message class. For better understanding, you get confused about this message class and this class name. I'll write the file name, I'll change the file name, message class name. So this name and the file name both are different now. Okay, so remember, here we will write a class name and here file name. Okay, this is your file name and this is your class name. Now here I'll write object x1, any object you can specify, and then class name. Because I don't have any argument in this constructor, I'll just write this thing. I don't have any argument, so I'll write like this. So what happened? And then I can create another object like x2 equal to x1, passing object values to another object, and then del x1, then del x2. Let me run this program. Guys, can you help me? What is the output of this program? What I need to run? Message class I have calling message class. Now I need to generate the output. What I need to do? I need to compile calling message class
Message class dot py. Yeah.
Right. When you execute, cannot import name, message class.
Is that should be from message class name? From message class name import.
Here we will have, suppose I'll write different name, descriptor, and I'll use a different name for, because we get confused on this name. So instead of that, I'll write, see, it will automatically create a PYC file. Basically, this is correct. That means this PYC is correct. It is creating that file. Now here we will write our class name, and our class name here is basically constructor destructor. Here I'm using greeting. Suppose. Because the name is confusion. So this is your file name. Remember, this is your file name and this is your class name. So from that package, what class you want to include? So from this package, maybe you have more than one class. This is your package basically. In this you have more than one class, remember, right? It can be more than one class. Here, greeting 1, greeting 2, greeting 3, greeting 0. These all classes you have in one py file. From that py file, that means from that package, you need to import only this greeting 0, 1, 0th, because I changed the name, so 0th one. So it will directly call 0th one. So it will import only 0th one. What in by this thing? That means if suppose this class allocating 10 MB memory, this class is allocating also 10 and this also 10. So whole memory of this whole package is how much? 30 MB. So if you are writing import from and this thing, so that means you are allocating 30 memory. But when you write import and particular class name, so this line will only allocate 10 MB memory. Remember, so it will allocate only 10 MB memory because we written as one class I want. I'm picking only one class. If you want another class, you just write here from and then constructor destructor whatever you have and import your class name. My class name is 2 now. So here 10 MB, here 10 MB, 20 MB only allocating. Sure. If you want all, you can write a star or anything else. But remember, for this, what we will do, we will write import and particular class name. My particular class name is greeting 0. So with the help of this greeting 0, I'm writing here Python and output. Constructor called and destructor called. So I'm just calling these methods. I'm allocating memory for these class. When you declare an object here and here, so see here what is the output. If you see here output, we are calling constructor only one time. Remember, this is called constructor calling, and whatever the value inside x1, we are passing same value to x2. Remember, so it will just display these values. Whether you perform some operations or not, remember, this is very important. If you are allocating memory, here I am allocating memory. Remember, just reference here is basically a reference. So in computer memory, what happen, I'll tell you. If you are writing x1, the x1 will allocate memory. It contains the name. This is basically the name and the value and the address. Three things we have here. You can say reference, computer memory reference. So these three things in x1. Name x1 is basically name, and the value can be anything. Suppose if I'm declaring a equal to 10, what in my mean by these things? A is basically a name, 10 is basically a value, right? And it can store somewhere else in computer memory. Suppose some value, it is in 010 format. So this is basically address of where it is stored data. So each object or variable contain three things: name, value, and address. So here also we have same thing, but remember this x1 hold name, value, and address, whereas x2, suppose I'll give some value here, maybe 21, consider, and here some value, address. Okay, now what happened in this case, x1 x2 is basically your name of object, value it can only store 10101. What in by this thing? It is an address of x1. How we are writing like this? That means it is basically referencing, it will store. At this time it will not call constructor. Remember, it will not call a constructor or destructor for this object x2. For this object it will not call constructor and destructor. Because of that reason, we are calling 2 times del, we are not getting 2 times of destructor. Getting a point? This is very important thing. Here it is basically storing reference, it is called reference, and here actual calling is constructor destructor calling. This is important thing. So two things are there. So here it will store an address of x1, and it can contain in his own address, maybe something 1101, some value. So this address is managed by Python interpreter. Internally it will manage. Inside that interpreter it will automatically manage, whereas this x1 address will store here in x2. How? When you write this line, that means you are referencing x1 with x2. Okay, any question, any doubt, guys? Remember, I'll just revise you. Here I am importing what I required. I have thousands of classes here. Consider, I have thousands of classes here. I'm just calling what class I need. So I'm importing particular class. When you write this line, that means you are calling constructor. When you write this line, that means you're calling destructor. But what do you mean by this thing? This is called reference storing. it will store a reference, and we will go in detail about this in detail more, because people though
Basically, like you are saying, it is a pointer, right? X2,
yes,
X1
yes,
value.
it's like a pointer pointing that address into is value section. So here it is pointing the address. So it is not holding actual value, like x2 is storing some value, it can be 21 or any value, but here we are pointing the value address of x1.
Can you print that X1 and X2 there? X2 equal to X1 below,
x2
equal to X1 in that below. Can we print X2 and X1? It's just a constructor, right?
it is basically an object. Remember, object, there are two types of object: normal object, which is x1. Here x1 is basically normal object, and another object, reference object.
Okay.
That means it will hold the address of another object. So here it is holding another object address. Okay, getting my point, Chaitanya?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for today. What we saw, just I'll revise it and then we'll continue tomorrow. We saw the concept yesterday. What we see: try, accept, and then else, finally raise, assert, and custom exception. I'll go in detail about this tomorrow. And then what we have in memory allocation, in deallocation, we need to remember, finally it's very important. Whenever you open any connection, whether it is SSH or database connection or any host connection or a PDSH connection, any connection, it is allocating memory. When you create a pipeline, it will allocate some memory, and that memory you need to deallocate it. So we use try and accept finally. So in finally we will write all the code. So this whole block we will come it will come under constructor and destructor, remember, because we don't know whether we can connect with particular system or not, because that server is shut down. So we are not able to connect with this server, right? That's why we'll write this in try block, and if it is successfully connect, then we will deallocate memory. Now another thing is what we have: raise. In raise we will specify some condition, and in condition we'll write some output. We'll raise the exception. Same thing we have in assert. Again we have here condition and the message. This message will come when the condition is false. Remember, it will generate exception, assert exception, message, that whatever you return, and skip next line. What happened in exception? Basically it will skip the line. So remember, if suppose here I'm trying to write some I'm trying to allocate some memory and I'm getting an error, so I'll directly go to exception block. So the remaining lines will skip automatically. Same thing here, the remaining part is skipped, and it will just display the message, and that's it. So we have two things here: procedural oriented programming language and object oriented programming language. In procedural, we have procedure which is called function. A set of function is called procedural oriented. So Python is both, for both. It is basically called partial or object oriented programming language. You can follow it or you can skip it, no problem for Python, because in Python we can write a code for procedural oriented, like function. A set of functions we can write in Python, or else we can write a set of classes, no problem. What is class? A set of members. It can be a method or data. Okay, differences I already shown you. What is different between method and function? Method comes under the class, whereas function comes directly within a program. Okay, so here we saw init and this del method. What is init and del? It is basically a constructor which will help us to allocate memory. Why we need to use this constructor? To initialize all objects. Like when you open your Windows operating system or any operating system, it is allocating some memory and it is loading the form. This whole thing is done in constructor only. So initialization part will come under here, whereas destruction part, means deallocation part, will come under destructor. Okay, you can create an object using a class name and the argument what you need to specify. These argument will pass it to the constructor. How many arguments you specify? Self is a current object, you can say it is basically a current object. Self is basically current object. In another language we say this keyword, THIS, this keyword. So this is self, and this thing we saw today. And then we will move to the class, and that class we should have in one program. This is one program. In one program we can have thousands of classes, remember. So from that thousands of classes we can call particular class using this line. I'm calling particular class. This class now it's available for this program when you write this line. And to available this class we need to use from and import keyword. From the file name, what is my file name? Constructor destructor.py. So without extension you need to write the file name, and then the class name. This is my class name which you want to pick. So with the help of this line, what happen? It will only allocate memory, whatever how much memory is allocated for particular class. It will not load whole classes. So if you have 1000 classes and you are calling only one class, it will allocate memory for particular one class only, not for thousands. So it is because of this reason Python is very faster. In interview you can tell them, and because of this reason Python is very fast. Another thing is what we have automatic garbage collector. With the help of automatic garbage collector, we saw already one program we saw. In that what we have, it automatically calls del, deallocate destructor. Whether you write this line or not, it will automatically call this destructor. If you specify this destructor here, it forcefully call garbage collector, and it will remove this allocated memory with the help of destructor. So here we are not writing printf. Basically I've just given you example. Here we are deallocating memory. So remember, we are disconnecting the connected in connection pipeline. So in constructor what we will do, we are connecting particular server, and here we are disconnecting the server whatever you connected. So here what we are doing, we are calling the constructor which will allocate some memory, and it will create an object. This is normal object, and x2 is basically a reference object in which it will not call any constructor or destructor of calling this line. So when you write this line, this del and x2, it will not deallocate memory. Why? Because it is just reference. It will remove this line, and it will not call destructor. Whereas when you call this line, it will call destructor, and this line will get executed. Destructor called. Getting my point? Any question, guys?
No.
Chaitanya? Okay, we will see tomorrow sharp 8 a.m. Okay, and we'll continue other topics also. This is all related to, remember Jagdish, this is all related to interview. That's why I'm going in detail about that. Otherwise we can skip it. But my suggestion is what we should know, at least what is object oriented concept, object oriented program. So at least for interview purpose I'm going in detail. You can easily crack this interview. Okay, they definitely ask you question related to object oriented. This is very important. They definitely ask you. And if they are asking about class, you should tell about constructor, destructor, constructor, this all things. Okay, we'll see tomorrow sharp 8 a.m. Nice.
Thank you.